So hello everybody, welcome to the third International Social Prescribing Network Conference. I can't believe that it's actually happening. It's been a long time in the making. We've been through 3 versions of how we should do this conference, but I'm just delighted to be with you in your houses today. What an unusual thing to say. My name's Dr. Polley, and I'm one of the founders of the Social Prescribing Network, and I'm co-chair of the Social Prescribing Network as well. So it's been a really rubbish year, hasn't it? I think we just have to start by acknowledging how hard it's been. I've not actually met a work colleague for a year. I've not seen my parents for nearly a year, and I've only seen my brother once. So I've sat just with my children and my husband working. And actually in January, I'm starting to think it's really looking not great. Who would even want to come to a 2-day conference online? We're online all the time. Anyway, we've had a good chat. We've made it as flexible as possible. Lots of content is pre-recorded. Recordings will be available for a month. So we just hope how we've done it works and it's going to be a meaningful event for you. We've got a hashtag for the conference. It's Social Prescribing 2021. So if you tweet, please use the hashtag, because that's going to come into our activity media wall on our Cvent platform. And this conference is the place where things happen. It's where new initiatives get announced, where reports get launched, where ideas in people's heads come to life, where people find jobs, they find evaluation teams. It really is a great melting pot of so many different sectors. The Social Prescribing Youth Network came out of one of these conferences. Paul came up to me and said, we really would like to do this. I was like, go for it. The Student Champion Scheme that Bogdan got going came out of one of these conferences as well. And that's just 2 things. I know there's going to be loads of stuff that's going to happen over the next 2 days. But most of all, the conference is a place for us to get connected, and we're all quite desperate for that, aren't we? And it's time to be part of a loving community. And I want you to know that you're not doing this on your own. We're all working towards a common good, and that's supporting a person at the time that they most need it with something that's going to work for them. And that's social prescribing, isn't it? So for the Social Prescribing Network, we're a very sort of, in a sense, a loose network. If you want to join the Social Prescribing Network, you just have to have an interest in social prescribing. Go on to socialprescribingnetwork.com and just sign up to the newsletters that we put out once a month. And that keeps you connected with what research is happening. We sit in the middle of all the different institutes, academies, centres, networks, and we keep everything connected. And we particularly help people get research participants and disseminate research. So if you're not already signed up, please sign up. So I've got a few things. I've got some housekeeping to do. I've got some thank yous to do. So I'm going to just start with the aim of the conference is to celebrate, I think, this year, to really celebrate the achievements that have been achieved through a very, very tough operating climate. One of the ways we'll do that is with the Social Prescribing Awards this afternoon. Can't wait for that. Thank you, Chamberlain Dunn, for all the work you've done curating those awards with us. And good luck to everybody that's been nominated and is in the finals. We also aim to create space to work through those really knotty problems that exist as sectors come to collaborate in equitable ways. And we know there are still lots of issues to work out, lots of head-scratching situations, and I hope that we create a space where those conversations can take place. And I hope the conference will catalyse a deeper understanding of what great social prescribing looks like, what good practice looks like, and the principles underpinning social prescribing. So great social prescribing is about collaboration and equity. We've particularly shined a light this year on social determinants. It's an area that we've not really investigated with our conferences so much before. I want to express my real gratitude to a few people, so bear with me whilst I sort of just go through the key groups I want to acknowledge. First of all, I want to express my gratitude to the Social Prescribing Network Steering Committee and to the organising committee for this conference. None of us have actually met up in person, and as the operating environment kept changing, we had to keep revisiting what we wanted to do with the conference and how to do it. And I'm really, really grateful to all the time that the committee have put into this out of the goodness of their own hearts, so thank you very much. I also want to thank Andre and Vicky and Claire, who've been working behind the scenes, and Ben, who are technicians and conference organisers. And again, they flexed with us all the times we've changed the format. Andre has the patience of a saint and has done technical checks with 80 speakers, and I'm incredibly grateful. Incredibly patient, Andre, and I can see him on the screen as I thank him, so that's really nice. And Vicky's been beavering away behind the scenes, getting you all connected and logged in. And I want to say a huge thank you to the conference supporters and sponsors, because without that support up front, we couldn't make the prices incredibly low like we have this year. So I just want to thank the College of Medicine, Home Sharing Care, NHS England and NHS Improvement, the National Academy for Social Prescribing, Arts Council England and the University of Salford. And I'm really delighted that we've got a wide range of exhibitors exhibiting today. So I really want you to go and check out the exhibitor pages and also try out our network lounge. This is new, you might not have done this type of thing before, but click into the network lounge and see what you think. You see tables, you flexibly join different tables, and you can go and chat with the exhibitors. And thank you to everyone that sponsored the Social Prescribing Network Awards. And finally, I'd like to thank the presenters who've all pre-recorded their talks where possible. We know that people can't be at the whole conference. You might be homeschooling, like we've been doing. Take my hat off to you, 2 days to go. You might be on the front line, you might be in clinic, you might be a link worker still seeing clients. We know that you're dipping in and out, and we know you've got other responsibilities. We're grateful that you're with us today. So just use the platform to your advantage and use that way to connect. We will make all recordings available potentially next week, so keep clicking back to the platform and you can pick up the whole conference on demand. A little bit of housekeeping just before I finish and I hand over to Michael. So this is possibly the first conference where I don't have to tell you where the toilets are, because hopefully you know that. And the catering is all up to you. But the conference webpage is really how you access everything. Go into the schedule, find your areas that you want to go and watch. You can tag them and put them in your diary. And the thing I most want you to do is go and edit your profile, because the way we connect is by finding the attendees on the platform, and all the speakers are listed under each session. And if you want to connect with people, you need to email them or message them. And likewise, if you want people to connect with you, put all your bio on, put your email on, put your Twitter handle on, and just make that connection work. So that's your task for today. I've asked you to go to the exhibitors, so I just wanted to let you know there's also a game to play. So every time you go to the exhibitors, if you take a screenshot, you can load that onto the Click Let's Play game, and the most active person will win a voucher of their choice for £300. So there's a little challenge and a little game and a little incentive. We've got lots of posters being exhibited. Again, the tab on the platform will tell you about posters. We do ask for abstracts every year, and we invite people to submit their research and we choose from it. So the people that aren't speaking are presenting their posters, and you can download those and take them away. And finally, I'd like to welcome Harula Ladd, who's our poet in residence. So just bringing the creative side. Harula will be moving around the conference, and she will be actually creating poetry across the 2 days, and we'll be tweeting it out. And we tweeted her Strengthening the Net welcome poem to the conference. Harula, that was a really, really great poem capturing kind of the difficulties of the year we've had. So there won't be so much time for question and answer in this session, but do keep posting your questions in the question thing, and you can like the questions that have already been posted. After the break, we're hoping to have Andy Burnham with us. We're keeping our fingers crossed that that will go smoothly. And we will use questions that you're posting as well for Andy later. So normally at this stage, I would be handing over to Michael Dixon, my co-chair. Really, unfortunately, Michael can't actually be with us this morning, and I'm really grateful to Sam Everington, who stepped in at the last stage to co-chair with me. But by the wonders of modern technology, Michael's recorded a message for you all. So over to you, Michael.
Well, thank you, Marie, and thanks for all the amazing work you've been doing in getting this conference off the ground. And welcome everyone, and in such enormous numbers. Marie thought 500 would be enough for this conference. I said 700, and of course, we've surpassed even that. When I came to do this recording, my daughter said, "Why are you wearing a tie and a suit? You don't do that for recordings these days." And I said, "No, you do." I said, respect for all the work that you're doing out there on the front line, because you really are changing the world and making it a better place. And I want to acknowledge that today in my introduction. Now, since we all met last year, a lot's been going on here in the UK. We've now got a link worker in every group of GP practices, a primary care network, and we'll have 2 or 3 in only a year or two's time. And that's not to mention the link workers that are also working in the VCSE sector and also in the local authorities. So we now have a large army of talented and enthusiastic link workers, and we must all make sure that they are properly supported and encouraged to do their very valuable work. The other issue that is a big one here in the UK is the question of the voluntary sector and the enormous financial changes that it is meeting, especially during COVID. And we hope that the Thriving Communities Fund of the new National Academy for Social Prescription will be able to address that. Now, surprisingly, during COVID, this has led to a rapid acceleration in volunteers supporting social prescription throughout the country. And during this conference, you'll be seeing examples of that. The 1,000 community connectors in Frome in Somerset, the 25,000 patient champions of Altogether Better in Bexley and other places. Because social prescription is not only about challenging the inequalities of those who most need it, it's also about changing medical perception. It's also about making sure that the whole community can take advantage of these new interventions that go beyond simple pills and procedures. And what I think COVID has taught us is that we cannot create resilient communities unless we bring together the local authority, the VCSE sector, and primary care with social prescription all together. Social prescription and asset-based community development cannot be separated. And we make no apology in today's conference in our focus, particularly on these major themes of community and connection. Now, outside the UK, we're well aware of the extraordinary challenges that you're all facing in your different countries. As often as I'm asked about how someone might develop social prescription in their country, they ask me, how on earth in the UK did that ever become national policy? And how will we ever get national funding to support our interpretation of social prescription? Well, I suppose the answer to that question is that every country is different. But in this conference and today, we want to start the ball rolling on that whole issue. And we want to be able in future to support colleagues in other countries with the very many challenges that you face. Now, I'm sad that I can't be with you today, but I do want to thank Marie and Sam for holding the keys to the conference today and keeping the show on the road. And I hope tomorrow I'll be back with you.
Thank you so much, Michael. I'm Sam Everington. I'm a GP in the East End of London at the Bromley By Bow Centre. And it's my privilege and joy to introduce to you the video that we're going to see from His Royal Highness Prince Charles. He is passionate about social prescribing, but let him say it in his own words.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm delighted to be able to join you at this third International Social Prescribing Network conference, albeit in this virtually distanced way. I must say, I always find it immensely encouraging to hear of the transformation that social prescribing can bring to people's lives. And I'm sure it will be most interesting to hear of the latest research and information on this subject from right around the world. Since Dr. Michael Dixon, Dr. Mary Polley, and their colleagues set up the Social Prescribing Network more than 5 years ago, it has been tremendously heartening to see how many professionals from different sectors of society have become passionately involved with this social movement. From medical practitioners to community organizations, from the fire service to housing, from prisons to libraries, the potential for social prescribing seems to be never-ending. I'm particularly inspired to see how this approach is supporting those people who are most disadvantaged by the circumstances in which they live. Now, as you will all know, social prescribing is now embedded as part of national policy in this country. This has enabled those of you working in the United Kingdom to set an example to the rest of the world of how community, collaboration and compassion in equal doses can support a person in ways that medicine on its own is unable to achieve. If I may, I particularly wanted to welcome the international delegates to this conference, and I'm delighted to hear that many of the schemes I learned about last year in the Netherlands, Lapland, Singapore and Canada continue to expand, not to mention the work now being carried out in the Republic of Ireland, Portugal, Italy and Australia. At the very heart of social prescribing is the understanding that compassion, respect and support for one another are essential. After the last 12 months, we have seen most painfully how much social prescribing is needed more than ever in our society, and how it can create those much needed social connections at a time when we have been having to isolate ourselves physically. I would like, if I may, to express my particular appreciation of the role played by all the link workers and the social prescribing schemes, whether in primary care, the local authority, or in the voluntary community, faith and social enterprise sectors. Across the United Kingdom, and indeed in Europe and in the Commonwealth, your efforts to identify and help people in your communities have been truly extraordinary. In the most difficult of circumstances, you have continued to provide support wherever possible to those in most need, and this has no doubt saved lives. On top of this, you have continued in your day jobs, as it were, maintaining contact with those you serve. I would also like to thank all of the voluntary, community, faith and social enterprise organizations for the determination you have shown in reimagining how to run services, often despite not being able to meet face-to-face or indoors, and at a time when many of your staff were furloughed. That is quite apart from the huge financial challenges which many of you have also been facing. You continue to be at the heart of our communities and at the heart of social prescribing. And we owe you, ladies and gentlemen, a great debt of gratitude for your selfless service to others. Now, as many of you may be aware, the integrity and protection of our natural environment has always been a special concern to me. I have seen at first hand the importance of people being connected to nature and all the benefits this brings to body, mind, and soul. I'm delighted to see the provision of more funding for research into green prescribing and into social prescribing more generally. If social prescribing can increase what I've called nature's capital through not only a greater appreciation of our physical environment, but also in active efforts towards its restoration and enhancement, and if it can also increase social capital and social connectedness, then I believe it will make a major contribution to some of the most important issues of our time. Finally, ladies and gentlemen, I am so very sorry that circumstances do not allow me to be with you in person today, especially as social prescribing is all about personal connection. However, I can assure you that your work and all you are doing continues to give me some real hope of a better future for our environment and our communities. So I can only end by saying, please continue your wonderful work.
Wow, so short of getting the Queen, we're delighted that Prince Charles wanted to support our conference again, and he was incredibly keen to say thank you to you all. And as Sam said, in his own words, I hope that you appreciate his message. Maybe the next conference we do, we'll get him in person again. Who knows? So the final welcome for this morning is from James Sanderson. And James Sanderson, many of you will know, but maybe not everybody. So James Sanderson is Head of Personalised Care at NHS England and has worked with us on the journey of bringing social prescribing into the NHS. And he's also Chief Exec of the National Academy for Social Prescribing. And in fact, the last event I went to was the launch of the Academy in March last year. So I'm going to hand over to James now for a few words.
Hello, I'm James Sanderson, Director of Personalised Care for NHS England and Improvement and Chief Executive of the National Academy for Social Prescribing. I'm delighted to be welcoming you today to this third international conference from the Social Prescribing Network. It's also a real honour to follow His Royal Highness, who I know has been a huge champion of social prescribing for many years now. I just wanted to start by thanking Marie Polley and Michael Dixon for their superb work in supporting social prescribing over many years now. The formation of the Social Prescribing Network has been a true force in bringing social prescribing up the agenda and into the mainstream health system in the UK. And Marie and Michael have championed social prescribing even before it was popular, which is quite a difficult task to take on board. So where is social prescribing at in the UK? Well, a number of years ago, we began the process of looking to scale social prescribing up across the country. We now have social prescribing link workers right across general practice, and it's embedded in the GP contract over here as part of the mainstream healthcare delivery system for the National Health Service. We're ahead of our target of having 1,000 link workers in place by the end of this month. We're going to significantly exceed that number. And we were also providing a major programme of training and development for link workers as part of a new role in the NHS. Over the next few years, we expect to have over 4,000 link workers in place, offering the opportunity for patients in every part of the country to be provided with social prescribing services from their GP. And this really matters. At least 1 in 5 GP appointments are for a non-medical need. People are going to see their GP because they have an issue with relationships or housing, or they're isolated or lonely. or they're in debt and need advice and support on work. So link workers provide a vital connection. And I just wanted to pay tribute to link workers, because certainly over the last year, link workers have stepped up and provided amazing support to their communities during obviously what have been difficult circumstances as we've battled COVID-19. Link workers provide a brilliant opportunity to create connection between people and their communities based on what matters to the individual. This isn't simple signposting. This is working with people to really find out what matters to them and develop significant plans. And thank you very much to all link workers who've been working in frontline practice over the course of the last year. You're doing an amazing job and really helping to transform the way in which we provide health and well-being for individuals. I also wanted to thank the thousands of people across the voluntary, community, faith and social enterprise sectors. This sector has really stepped up during the COVID pandemic and has provided amazing support to communities. The voluntary sector obviously has always been there for communities, but the way it's embraced social prescribing and the way in which voluntary, community, faith and social enterprise organisations are now working alongside the NHS to deliver services is quite remarkable. I think social prescribing has an amazing power to create connections, not just for the people that it's supporting, not just for those individuals who are benefiting from social prescribing, but also between organisations across traditional boundaries. So what we're seeing over here is we're seeing the community choir linking up to the library, linking up to the mosque, linking up to the dementia cafe, linking up to the walking football club. We're seeing organisations at a local level come together to create strong partnerships to support their communities. And that's all because of the shared power of social prescribing. Social prescribing has been described as a revolution in health and well-being, and I think that's true. I think we've got the opportunity to really shape a very new model for healthcare delivery, and not just domestically, right across the world. And that's why this conference is so important. It is a truly international conference. It's going to showcase the best of social prescribing practice from right across the globe. One of the things that we've been working on through the National Academy for Social Prescribing, which was established by the Secretary of State for Health and Social Care, Matt Hancock, is the opportunity to create a global social prescribing alliance. We're working with the UNGSII, the World Health Innovation Summit and the World Health Organization to create an opportunity to bring together partners from right across the world to look at how we can scale up social prescribing practice internationally. We were very pleased to launch the alliance last week, and we're looking to work with partners over the next few months to really champion this global movement. The National Academy is also working on a Thriving Communities programme to harness the power of communities. We're looking to improve the evidence base for social prescribing through an academic collaborative, which the Social Prescribing Network is part of. And we're also looking to champion social prescribing through clinical champions and ambassadors. Thank you very much for joining this amazing conference over the next couple of days. We've got an amazing lineup of speakers. We've got experts from right around the world who are going to be discussing social prescribing practice. I hope you will enjoy the experience, and I'm really delighted to be joining it with you. Thank you very much.
So a very big thank you to James. James is the most extraordinary of civil servants, has this amazing ability to persuade ministers to do a whole raft of things. And as you see from his presentation, absolutely passionate about social prescribing. And what he hints at there, I think, which is the most exciting thing, is the connections he's making in creating it into a truly international movement of social prescribing. Do you know what I love about being with you all today? It's about being with my family. You are my family. You are what I'm passionate about. And James, I think, thank you again for showing your passion, but also showing a very exciting way forward. So it's now my job to tell you a bit about social prescribing under COVID in the East End of London. And in a few moments, I'm going to hand over to Emma, who is an amazing one of our social prescribing leads at the Bromley By Bow Centre in the East End of London. So this was a picture of the Bromley By Bow Centre in winter, but always a warm welcome, even if it's very cold. The Bromley By Bow Centre was started in 1984. You can see that black and white picture there, and known by all my East End patients as dog shit green. Look at it today in 2021. Absolutely a beautiful paradise. And that's how it is now, even under COVID. It has over 100 projects under one roof, and it's in a park which is owned by the local authority, but that we manage. We have a contract to manage it. And under this roof, under this community centre, is a whole raft of amazing things going on by the community and owned by the community. I often like to say that the health centre is not owned by me. It isn't. It's actually owned by the community. And this just gives you the taste of some of the things that are going on and have gone on throughout COVID. Things like helping people with their energy costs. So 200 families saved £2,000 a year. And that to families in the East End of London is an enormous amount of money. The connection zone, and you will hear from Emma how the connection zone has gone virtual, connecting everything we do here with everyone in the community. The general practice embedded in the middle of it, the park, the allotments. If you get the chance, do go and look at the King's Fund report on gardening in health. The connection between gardening and health is just extraordinary, and that illustrates it very well. So that's just some of the projects there. But the most important thing about Bromley By Bow Centre and social prescribing is this. And yes, this is pre-COVID. We will show you some pictures during COVID, but this at the top describes exactly what we're about. Do I say as a GP, it's all, my mission is about good outcomes, vision, all those things? Yes, I say that. But actually, what you will get in an email from me is my fundamental and all our fundamental vision, which is around compassion, fun, friendship, and assuming it's possible. And when you have that sort of philosophy, amazing things come out of it, and amazing people become leaders. And you'll get from Emma some sense actually of how people, even during COVID, have done amazing things. But it's been an incredible tough time for us in the East End of London. The highest in the first wave and in the second wave, some of the highest death rates. The inequalities absolutely come to the fore. I need to tell you that in the East End of London, if you are black, you are 3 times more likely to die from COVID. And if you're Asian, half as likely to die. COVID has absolutely exposed the inequalities in our society and shows what a massive task we have to address that, and how critical social prescribing is to that mission. Of course, I've talked about the physical consequences of COVID, but as a GP, every day, the consultations have doubled in terms of mental health, and virtually no consultation now is without a mental health element. People are scared, frightened, kids have been kept at home for months, missed out on their education. It's a pretty dire situation. And this, I think, sums it up. So you might see this as a beautiful picture. This is the Bromley By Bow Centre on a Monday morning. The beautiful park, and it looks gorgeous, doesn't it, with all these people in the park. But what you need to know is that's the queue for the food bank. which goes on for about 3 hours. In Tower Hamlets now, 1 in 100 families survive only because of food banks. And isn't that shocking when we are the 5th richest country in the world? And yes, it's also a wonderful moment, actually, because if you're out there, what you'd also see is all our team serving people coffees and teas and all talking to each other and using it as an opportunity to see how they can help our local community in so many different ways. So let me hand over to Emma, as I say, who is one of our amazing social prescribing workers and is going to give you a taste and a sense, actually, of how we've adapted and how social prescribing has adapted to COVID. Emma.
Hi, thank you so much, Sam. Yeah, it gives me real pleasure to be able to speak on behalf of the incredible team at Bromley By Bow, who have been working tirelessly over the last year and even before that within social prescribing in Tower Hamlets. So our scheme under COVID has been dramatically changed, and I think the thing to really highlight is that it was based on an instinctive drive and a determination and deep desire to just really connect people to the support that they needed when they needed it most. We realized that there were many people in our community that were really at risk of being left behind once again with all of the inequalities that the pandemic cracked open. We found a lot of people at homes that we didn't know, in their homes that we didn't know that were isolated, struggling that we didn't know were struggling. So in some ways, we're very grateful to have been able to connect with a number of people that wouldn't have otherwise accessed social prescribing before. In fact, 85% of the referrals that we received during the pandemic, during the last year, 85% of people that we were in touch with had no support from other services at all. So really emphasising to us the need of more social prescribing and ways of doing it differently under COVID as well. So our scheme has been running for over 10 years actually in Bromley By Bow, but what this pandemic helped us to realise was that we needed to keep innovating. So when things started to become a little bit hairy in March, April last year, we mobilised very quickly and we realised that we needed to create something that responded to the needs of our local community. So in normal circumstances, a social prescribing referral to our team would be picked up within 2 weeks. And actually, we realised that that was dangerously long. So we mobilised quickly and we were able to get back to people within 2 days of referral. And this meant that we were able to connect people to the much needed material support that they needed, whether that was food banks or access to white goods or even a safe space to sleep. So what we realized through this as well is that there were many people who were being referred, but there were also a number of people who we were missing actually, because they weren't able to access the usual channels of referral. So we also needed to reach out to people. And what we found was that in just 6 weeks of working in this way, we were able to reach the same numbers of people that we would normally reach in around 6 months of the service in any other normal circumstances. So, as well as delivering one-to-one support, we also realized that we had to do this proactive work, which was about understanding our communities based on the information that we already had and really proactively reaching out to them, understanding their needs. And when we, most people say, okay, so we're going to be cold calling, we're going to be, contacting people that haven't been referred. But actually what people said when we called them was thank you. And I thought I had been forgotten. So this was a real opportunity for us to reach the people who would not normally have been reached under a usual referral pathway. So we also realized that because of the situation, although we were reaching high numbers of people through referrals and through proactive outreach, actually common sense told us that there were many people that would be isolated and lonely in their homes, unable to access any form of support, struggling to manage in a very turbulent and difficult time. So what we wanted to do was bring social prescribing into a format that was very easily accessible in a time and way that helped people in their own way. So we developed a home pack, and this was really bringing the team to people in their homes when they needed it most. So this pack was a collection of activities, a collection of services, a collection of different opportunities in the community, whether it be virtual or via the phone, for people to connect. So we texted this to people, we posted it to people, we emailed it to people, and we made sure that it could reach as many people as possible. And in the first part of the pandemic, this went to nearly 200 people in a short space of time. And of course, when the rules relaxed, we were able to go and visit people in their homes, of course, socially distanced, excuse me, of course, socially distanced. And this was amazing because, of course, we'd been supporting people over the phone and virtually for such a long time. And it was really amazing to meet the people that we'd not met before and really see the difference that small gestures like this could make. So we went to visit people and delivered the home packs. And again, the overwhelming sense of gratitude from people who were worried that they'd been forgotten, were worried and anxious about coping through a difficult time. And this is just a snapshot of the people that we were able to deliver the home pack to. And so for Janet, Hamida and Ian, this made the world of difference and actually really brightened their day and helped them to navigate a very difficult time. So as difficult as the pandemic was, like I said, this was a real opportunity for us to innovate based on our values. So we didn't want to just deliver more of the same, but we actually wanted to stretch the model and see how far we could take social prescribing. So we also wanted to use the opportunity to weave people back into the fabric of their communities. We didn't want people just to be relying on one or two social prescribers when we know that the real power of social prescribing is in the communities and in the neighbourhoods that people live within. So as people were referred to us, we also used our networks that we'd created through a range of different programs and projects that were based on community development work to connect people to other people that were in similar circumstances. One story that really springs to mind is of a young mum who was giving birth for the first time, and her circumstances had changed drastically during COVID. She was due to move out to a home on her own, but due to the circumstances, she had to move in with extended family, which presented many different challenges for this young and first-time mum. So she was under a number of different services, including maternal mental health. But what she said and what she needed was actually somebody who understood the situation that she was in. She wanted to be able to rant about her in-laws. She wanted to be able to express the pain of giving birth in a pandemic when she couldn't be with her friends. So through our community development project, Communities Driving Change, we were able to connect her to another mum in a different part of the neighbourhood who was able to text her and connect with her and understand what she needed and give her that much needed support that was so much more informal than a statutory service. They're still friends to this day, and we're glad to say that they continue to support each other. And these were the kind of connections that we felt were so important in maintaining through the pandemic, when people couldn't meet new people and couldn't tap into the networks that would support them through changes in their lives. And of course, we know that the pandemic is littered with heightened need, and it really has shone a light on the fact that we need to do more to support people with very challenging socioeconomic difficulties in their lives. But of course, we also know that there has been an incredible amount of people that want to give back, that want to get involved in their community and want to support people in different circumstances. So we also have a group of older women that usually would meet at one of our GP practices. This is a group of women who call themselves Chatter Matters, because what they do is they meet on a weekly basis and they talk about any and everything that matters to them. And of course, under COVID, they weren't able to continue meeting in the same way. Zoom wasn't accessible to them, so they found themselves on WhatsApp, and they created a group for themselves, and they continue to check in with one another, bake cakes for each other, and drop it round to each other's houses. And then the most extraordinary thing happened when social distancing rules relaxed and people were able to meet in person. They found themselves a space in the local church. They organised themselves, they measured the distance between the chairs, and they themselves organised their meetings and continue to do so. And they're eagerly awaiting the time when they are able to meet again in person and welcome more and more people into their group as well. So I think what we've learned is really throughout this experience is that we need to keep going with social prescribing. We need to keep innovating, and we need to keep thinking how we can help these schemes to reach more and more people. Our team in Bromley By Bow has expanded, and we have integrated with a number of other community development teams across the centre to be able to reach even more people. We believe that the rapid response is really important to really help people's situations from becoming worse, and we believe that responding to people in difficult situations needs to be done as quickly as possible to maintain their well-being. And we also believe that that supporting people proactively is also really important. We have much evidence and more and more emerging about the needs that really exist in our community. So let's not wait for people to be referred, but let's actually get out there and connect people to the support that they need when they need it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Emma. What is incredible about what Emma and her team has done is under COVID, they've actually expanded their service threefold. Isn't that incredible, actually, with all those challenges? And the thing that was personally fantastic for me was in their home pack, the idea of an emergency kit. And in my emergency kit, I've got Maltesers, my favourite music, and of course, as you see behind me, my Norwegian flag. I'm half Norwegian, so it reminds me of what I'm missing, but also the joy of my birthplace. So thank you so much, Emma. And finally, I just wanted to mention very quickly something about the future. James gave a hint of it actually in his presentation, but we are, I think, at the beginning of an enormously big movement. I often describe social prescribing as a GP as something that expands what I can do 5 times. Actually, only about 20% of health is delivered traditionally by me in a traditional model as a GP. But when I have all this team around me and around all our patients, delivering on helping them get a job, helping them get education, dealing with environmental issues, supporting them around art, creativity and spirituality, suddenly you realize what's possible. The world is possible. And so to me, I want to leave you on that note. And the question is actually, what do we do next, actually, to expand this movement, to help people in the health professions actually expand their offering, but actually, most importantly, to engage all our communities, create leaders in everyone, and focus, as so many people have said before, on what matters to them, not what the matter is with them.
So thank you very much, Sam, and thank you very much, Emma. As you've been talking, there's been questions coming into the chat. We always like to have a space to ask contentious questions as well as straightforward ones, so people are interested in more information about Bromley By Bow and the links and all of that, so we'll sort all of that out. We will make things available after the conference so you can access everything on the platform. I think it's worth looking at the comments and just saying social prescribing is not something that's claiming that it's invented community development for the people that are putting responses up. Social prescribing, I see it as an architecture of connecting what already exists and designing a human into the centre of that, and that's the link worker. And I think sometimes we have very efficient systems that lose the humanity. So I think social prescribing brings that back, and it's about connecting all the existing services, organisations and sectors to work more efficiently and more humanely in that sense. So that's just a response to that. But thanks for sharing the great work that's happened at Bromley By Bow over many years. They're one of the first and only sort of existing health centres that were set up a long time ago. I'm going to hand over now. I want to introduce Aimie Cole and Dr. Stuart Smith. So Aimie is a freelance consultant working with the Institute of Social Prescribing, and Stuart Smith is a GP in St Austell and is social prescribing lead there. And they're going to gaze into their crystal ball and have a think of social prescribing going forward. So I think that picks up from Sam's challenging question at the end there. What is it going to look like in the future? So I'm going to hand over to Aimie first.
Thanks, Michael. Thanks, Marie. Thanks to the Social Prescribing Network. It's a real pleasure to be here today. It's always a bit of a tough act to follow when you're on after something like the Bromley By Bow Centre, who've been doing such great work for such a long time. But anyway, my name's Aimie Cole, and I work with many different organisations that support people to improve their health and well-being. And I feel really fortunate through my work that I get to work with a lot of social prescribing teams. And last year I spent 6 months with the South West Institute for Social Prescribing, shadowing their 5 test beds, some of which I'm sure some of you will recognise because, you know, these are well-established social prescribing teams in the region. Now, the Institute had been set up a year earlier by the South West Academic Health Science Network to inform the innovation and spread of social prescribing across the South West region and beyond. Now, the way the Institute works is that it has practitioners at its heart, so we worked alongside these teams to capture learning that we felt could be useful to others. Now, a report on that's just been published and you can find it on the Institute's web pages. I'm not going to run through it today, mostly because we don't have time, but also because actually I've been asked instead to highlight what I think some of that learning may indicate for what the future of social prescribing looks like. So our work with the test beds started in March last year. So it was obviously very much informed by the early stages of the COVID pandemic. And, you know, what we learned during that time, I mean, what's here, none of it will be a huge surprise to many of us now, I would have thought. But I think what really struck us in March last year was just how rapidly these experienced social prescribing teams were able to react and adapt. You know, it was literally overnight and suddenly social prescribers were working with mutual aid groups, food banks, police, pharmacists, councils, local resilience forums, shops, everyone really. And these then developed into really strong working relationships in many cases, often backed by process and procedure and all those other things that need to be in place to make things work effectively. And the other thing that we really sort of struck us was how, in partnership with their colleagues in GP surgeries, the council and voluntary sector, the social prescribers were able to do very rapid assessments of their entire population to understand people's vulnerability to COVID. And through this, the teams were able to reach more people with support than perhaps they'd ever done before. Now, obviously, given the current world we live in, it is perhaps a bit risky to start making predictions about the future, especially when we're drawing on quite a small sample size. But given the Institute's test beds are among some of the more experienced social prescribing teams in the country, it does feel like their experiences and what we know from elsewhere can help us make a few predictions. So I don't think anyone would be surprised or disagree that there's clearly going to be a much greater need for the type of support that social prescribing offers. So, you know, for people that have been isolated for the best part of a year, it's going to take a lot of time and support for them to become confident and engaged in society again. For people with mental health issues, suffering with bereavement, physical deconditioning, long COVID, unemployment, money worries, stress, all these things will affect people's health and well-being, and many of these people will need the sort of support that social prescribing can offer. We saw how social prescribers were able to identify more people that needed support when they were involved in the crisis response. And what we're seeing now in the test beds is that they don't want to stop there. They want to be able to reach as many people as they can. And there are some great examples of how they're doing this through using notice boards and other means at vaccination centres to make sure that they can try and get as many people to hear about the support that does exist. Now, secondly, we know that there will be more social prescribing link workers coming into post as the NHS rollout continues. Now, at the same time, we also know that the demands on link workers, which are already high because this is difficult work, but those demands are only going to increase. So link workers are going to need more support. And this will partly be because of the complexity and level of demand from people, but it will also be because, in effect, social prescribers are going to be running 2 services alongside each other for quite some time probably. One, a digital service and another face-to-face, and this is just more challenging to manage than one. Now, the other thing we're starting to see in the test beds is the development of more specialised social prescribing. So, for example, in Ilfracombe, they're working with DWP on youth unemployment, and in Frome, they're developing teams of digital connectors to try and overcome issues of digital exclusion. And I think we can expect to see more of this, especially targeted at health inequalities in the future. Now, one thing that we hope we'll continue to see in the future is the harnessing of all the civic action and increase in volunteering that came with COVID. And again, in the test beds, we're seeing good examples of how they're doing this by offering people that have volunteered to help at the vaccination centres with their community connector training, so that they can act as ambassadors for the social prescribing team in the community. So really what we're seeing in the future is a whole lot more social prescribing, and that can only be a good thing. But we also know that there are real risks to this. Now, social prescribing's purpose is to connect people into social, practical and emotional support to improve their health and well-being. But unfortunately, we cannot assume that this support will just magically be there. We know that what was a very stretched community and voluntary sector before COVID is now really struggling, as its ability to fundraise has dropped through the floor at the same time as demand has hit the roof. And we're probably only really seeing the tip of the iceberg at the minute, because a lot of charities are still benefiting from COVID relief. Now, the shrinking of this sector will be bad for everything and everyone, but it will also be bad for the future prospects of social prescribing. You know, if there are no charities providing advice on benefits and housing, if there is no sign language counselling service for deaf people, or a befriending service, or any of the million and other things that social prescribers link people into, then it is going to be a lot harder, if not impossible, for them to do their job. Now, there are many people and organisations working together to try and help overcome this challenge, people that are looking to channel funding where it's most needed and find other solutions. Now, for example, in the South West, what we saw was how crucial the community development elements of their teams are, and they all have them. Now, for me, it's this issue about how we ensure there is practical support and activities that people can be linked into that really feels like the most crucial factor that will determine what the future of social prescribing looks like in the UK. Now, without solutions to this, the future looks potentially bleak. But being an optimist by nature, I think we have to think that we can find a way through this, and we have to. Now, I'm going to hand over soon to Dr. Stuart Smith, the GP in St Austell, who's led the development of their social prescribing. And Stuart's going to share with you his lived experience of what social prescribing has meant to him, his patients and his practice, and what he hopes for the future. Now, I've talked today a lot about people and communities, but the other important element of all this is, of course, GPs. And whether you think social prescribing should be based in communities or in primary care, I think we can all agree that actually what really matters is that GPs and communities are working together to support people from wherever they're based. And what we've seen with the test beds in the South West is that when social prescribing is mature and works well, that it really is the practical embodiment of the health system I think we probably all want, with personalised, coordinated care that meets the full range of people's social, emotional, practical and medical needs. And we've seen in the test beds how social prescribing really has made this happen in their areas, and how in turn this has had a dramatic impact on their GPs, on their workloads, on their ability to attract and retain staff, and their job satisfaction. As one of the GPs in Kingsbridge said, their work is now so much more fulfilling because they have the tools and mechanisms from social prescribing to help people address the root causes of their health and wellbeing issues. Now, if every GP in the land could feel that, then that would signal a great future for social prescribing. Now I'm just going to hand over to Stuart. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Aimie, for your presentation. It's been wonderful to work with Aimie in the Institute of Social Prescribing in the South West over the last few months, and I think what Aimie succeeded in doing is pull together some really important themes in what are some really different and complex schemes. So thanks so much for that. I'd encourage any of you to read Amy's report if you can. Thanks also to Sam Everington. It's great to hear from Sam as always, and I should reflect at this point on what really encouraged me to get into social prescribing. And I had a visit to see Sam and his practice, this oasis of calm and positivity in the middle of Tower Hamlets, where actually what I saw was a culture of community mindedness, of concentrating on well-being and holistic medicine, that actually, frankly, I thought I really want to be a part of this, and that's exactly the kind of atmosphere and culture that I would love to work in. So St Austell is a town on the south coast of Cornwall, famous for the Eden Project, Lost Gardens of Heligan. However, like many ex-mining towns, and indeed smaller towns in the UK, St Austell has a high instance of socioeconomic deprivation and a high chronic disease burden, with much lower than average wages. I've been a GP in St Austell for the last 11 years. Now, back in 2014, we experienced a huge overhaul of general practice in the town, and this was catalysed by the failure of a local practice. 11,000 patients left without a GP in the context of an existing workforce and workload crisis. Like many other areas of economic deprivation, we found it really, really hard to recruit GPs and other clinical workforce to our town, and the failure of this large practice represented a huge threat to the whole of primary care in the town. We made a decision at that time to merge the remaining practices and developed a practice of 37,000 patients, which is now a single practice PCM, and set about redesigning primary care in the context of what we know are economic pressures, high workforce pressures and workload pressures as well. It's important to remember that before COVID, there were huge pressures on the workforce in our healthcare system, and that's often replicated in other healthcare systems across the world, of course. And important to remember too that it's likely the pandemic will exacerbate those pressures. So we had to do something different, and if we wanted to reassure Paul Poldock here on the right that we could find him a GP, and I'm pleased to say that we have now. So what we did is we inspired by the experiences of the likes of Frome and Bromley By Bow, we set about instilling social prescribing and a community focus on well-being right at the very core of everything that we did. It became normal for us to see walking groups leave from the surgery, to hear our singing for lung health groups as we went about our clinical work, transforming this sterile clinical environment into a more vibrant, creative landscape. And normal for us to refer our patients to Eden Project for horticultural therapy, and to see loneliness, depression, diabetes and even unemployment reversed, bucking the trend of 10 years of prescribing medications and referring people on to specialists. Now, along with that change, we had a change in our fortunes as well. From a hard to recruit to area, we began attracting more doctors, more nurses, more clinicians, and in 2015 we won an award for averting service failure. In 2019 we won the NAPC's Primary Care Home of the Year award, and you can see Hayley, our social prescriber, front and centre of that award ceremony, quite rightly, because we will put social prescribing at the very heart of everything that we've done in transforming things in St Austell. Equally, and as a huge inspiration to our staff, His Royal Highness the Prince of Wales and the Duchess of Cornwall came to the surgery in the summer, and here they are celebrating primary care's effort in COVID with a huge range of staff across our CPM, across our PCM. So ranging from mental health workers to patients, social prescribers, nurses in the practice and the community. We all work together, all for the same goal, which is the best health and well-being for our community. We've mapped culture and staff sickness and enjoyment at work throughout this process, and all of which have improved dramatically as we've adopted a more holistic, community-focused way of working, moving away from the medical model towards a much more well-being-based approach. Now, of course, COVID has changed a great deal, and like everywhere else, we've had to adapt, but we've been able to adapt, and we've been delivering food parcels and medications through nearly 2,000 volunteers across the town, and the volunteers have been helping in our vaccination centres, and we've adopted the help at hand, and developed the help at hand technology to improve our offering, and despite the COVID pandemic. Now, there's no doubt that some of the innovations that we've adopted during the pandemic will be here to stay. But I think it's really, really important to reflect on the need to get back to what we all know keeps us happy and healthy. It's essential for our communities that we reinvigorate the social prescribing and community offers that existed before COVID, after COVID, because one thing that we know for sure is that the fallout from this pandemic will be far-reaching and will exacerbate some of the existing problems that we experience in our communities. What's also, I think, really, really important to focus on, though, is that the pandemic's likely to also exacerbate some of the existing problems for our workforce and for our services, and particularly in primary care. There's a palpable feeling of exhaustion and a need to significantly refresh things. What we've seen in St Austell, and I've seen in other centres that have really adopted social prescribing, though, is a newfound enthusiasm in the workforce, almost distilling back the very reasons that we came into health and social care for. Fundamentally, we're here to help people, and there's this visceral sense with social prescribing that you are helping people. It's evidence for you. You can see it with your own eyes in the surgery and in the communities, and certainly that's been the reflection of our junior doctors and other clinical staff who are really inspired by social prescribing. And I leave you with a final thought that social prescribing doesn't just change communities, it really can help change healthcare and primary care settings as well, making them more sustainable and a more fun and enjoyable place to work. So grateful for your time today, and I really hope that you can enjoy the rest of this wonderful conference.
Aimie and Stuart, thank you so much. That was absolutely wonderful. I take from that St Austell is a completely different place to how it was a few years ago. I take that, Aimie, a real focus on what the challenges are, and that's fascinating to see them all laid out. But also what I take from that also is the amazing relationship that you and Stuart have with each other, which is connecting the reality of what's going on the ground, changing every day, with an academic approach. And that is absolutely unique and wonderful. Now, because we've got a few moments, I've also got the opportunity to ask you a few questions. So for Stuart, I'd love to ask you the question, if you go back 10 years ago, how different is the atmosphere in St Austell's? Because I get a sense of an amazing change in atmosphere. And then I would love you both to say something about each other and that relationship and how that strengthened both your roles and tasks. So let's start with you. How different is the atmosphere now? And tell me what you think about Aimie.
It's completely different, Sam. So, 10 years ago, we really were at the brink of complete collapse in terms of our primary care offer in the town. We had practices collapsing, GPs leaving, impossible to recruit clinicians, and frankly, even myself, I have to reflect back and think, I wasn't too far away from leaving the profession, and now what we do, despite the pandemic, is really go into work with a vigor and a passion to stand shoulder to shoulder with colleagues, and crucially our community that are now right behind us. We feel not only based in the community but part of the community, and I really feel that social prescribing has been at the very heart of joining us up with the community. We now have staff coming to us asking to work with us, and we have a really vibrant sense of a common good in the practice and in the communities as well. Of course, there's a lot of work to do, and of course nothing is perfect, but the difference across that decade is palpable, and that's where, again, I'm passionate that actually this wonderful movement that really you and colleagues have started and that we're all on now has a real potential to not only really help bring communities together, but actually transform healthcare within communities. And it's much needed, as I say. We mustn't forget that there is a workforce crisis across healthcare, not just in this country, but of course across other countries as well. And this way of working really does feel that it reinvigorates the very heart of what we all went into the job to do, which is to help people and to help communities. In terms of working with Aimie, I can only reflect on social prescribing. Actually took me quite a number of years to get my head around, to be honest, coming from this the biomedical medical training, and it took me a while to get my head around, and it is a bit of a nebulous concept sometimes, and what you find is that everywhere does it differently, and quite rightly as well. It has to be community bespoke and focused. What's right in Tower Hamlets is not necessarily right in St Austell. I think what Amy's managed to do is really distill down some of the common themes across very different schemes, and really distill down what it is that makes successful social prescribing. And it's so, I think, as providers of healthcare, to have that expertise that the likes of Aimie and the AHSN have lended to us to distill down really complex problems has been a great joy, and sit down in paper is a wonderfully rewarding experience after a lot of hard work. So extremely grateful to Aimie and her colleagues.
And Aimie, your relationship with Stewart.
Thank you. Yeah, so I think, as I said at the beginning of my my speech, I feel really privileged that I get to work with people like Stewart. He's really passionate about what he's trying to do in St Austell. And for me, that just makes it, to be honest, it's a pleasure. It doesn't really feel like work. The other thing about Stewart, he's a really busy GP in a really sort of, town that really has quite a lot of health needs, but he's always been really generous with his time. And, for people like me that are trying to help capture and share some of the good work that he's doing in his area, that also makes a really big difference. So, it's been really great to work with him.
So Aimie and Stewart, thank you so much again, and for showing us what you're doing in St Austell, and showing us the power of the connection of academia and the consistent real-time research going on the ground. That's absolutely fantastic. Just to say to you now, there's over 1,000 people at this conference. That's absolutely incredible, from countries all around the world. There's lots of chat. And do look at it around resources and how tight that is, and lots of examples about how people are managing and dealing and getting the resource. I think quite a lot from just people, but there's lots of ideas, and I suspect that will be quite a lot of the chat over the next 2 days. Please do visit the social lounge. We're about to go to a break. Back again at 11 o'clock. Please, it is a new link. It is a new link. So make sure you go into the new link. And at 11 o'clock, Mari will be introducing Andy Burnham, who used to be a health minister and is now mayor of Manchester, and also passionate about social prescribing. So see you back again at 11 o'clock in the new link.